my role as a divorce coach is to help a client find the emotional support they need, the motivational support, spiritual support, physical supports that they might need. What are their goals? Improve communications, manage this emotional turmoil.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Law Down Under. Before we get underway, I wanted to remind the viewers that this show offers general advice only. It does not take your personal situation into account. It is not intended to be relied upon, and any financial legal decisions should only occur after you have received tailored advice from a legal or financial professional like Thad. Okay, now let's get into it. So Thad, welcome to your first episode of Divorce Down Under, or Law Down Under, actually.
Yeah.
We're soon to be Law Down Under, and not sure if you're aware of that, but we are moving from Divorce Down Under to Law Down Under. Law Down Under. You will be the first new episode to appear there. Thad, it's a pleasure to have you join us. Thank you. And before we introduce you, I wanted to touch on a subject that is close to my heart. Today we're talking about something that could save you thousands of dollars, protect your children from unnecessary conflicts, and help you in a way from your divorce with dignity intact. Most people going through separation don't even know this support exists, but those who find it wish they discovered it sooner. We're exploring divorce coaching. What is it, and how it transforms one of life's hardest journeys into something you can navigate with clarity and confidence. Thad, you're the founder of Better Outcomes, bringing over 30 years of experience in conflict resolution to help families navigate separation and divorce with dignity and kindness. As a DCA certified ADR divorce coach, nationally accredited family law dispute resolution practitioner, AMDRS mediator, and certified conflict coach, you combine professional expertise with genuine compassion. You're also a loving father and papa, took that from your website, and a shamanic breathwork practitioner and healer, bringing a truly heart-centered approach to your work. Your mission is clear: to help families get through this difficult and emotional time whilst building a positive future, ensuring the well-being of children remains a priority. And that, I must say, this is something personal to myself, and I wish I'd known about services, like what you provide. Many years ago, I went through a separation, and it would have been probably a godsend to my future years to have someone like you. But without further ado, welcome, Thad. And can you talk more about that?
Yeah, happy to, Matt. Thank you. And, the journey to becoming a divorce coach, it's really started many years ago. I mean, I think the first time I did a divorce mediation was probably about 21 years ago. But I've been mediating for over 30 years. And it was as simple as practicing the principle of mediation. I had a couple that had been divorced for 3 years, and they weren't able to decide how to spend money on the daughter, where she go to school, and they were going back and forth. And she was 13. And it really was helping them build a team around them, helping them to have a dialogue, helping them have that communication. So, I mean, all of that led to, well, how can I really do this better? I mean, it was a great outcome for them. The ex-husband said, I wish I'd found you earlier. It was like, this was great. And I was like, well, I really want to make sure that I can do this better. And so it's just been attaching more experiences, more tools, more ideas. How can I get people to talk and then listen? And listening, I think, is the key to that superpower that we need when we're separating, because it is the most dramatic thing that I think it's the biggest grief point in life. I mean, when we lose a loved one, that's one thing in death. But when we lose the dream of what our future was going to be with someone that we really cared about, because we married them or we moved in together, we had kids together, there's a lot of expectations and pain that needs to be navigated. And that's how I began this journey to really, how can I help people?
Yeah, and I think with your experience, so many years of experience, you would have seen so many different things, and you're able to sort of teach those people that come along, and you provide those services to, and fast track, or improve the process of what they're going through. Because you're right, it's one of the most difficult times, and you sort of feel like you lose purpose. Well, I did at the time.
And that's not unusual. I think everybody, I mean, I went through a divorce 25 years ago, and it was sort of After a 19-year marriage, it was like, where's my purpose? What's happened here? How did this happen? It wasn't just the world fell out from underneath me. It was like the world fell out and then I got absorbed into a dark hole and didn't know where it was.
Mm.
And I had tools and I went to a therapist. And there was no divorce coach. It was like, go to a lawyer or go to therapy. And I went, I'm going to go to therapy first before I even talk to a lawyer. I want to get
Yeah.
myself, knowing intuitively, I want to get myself emotionally right before I start anything else.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, I'm going to let the viewers let you share something personal about yourself. And I think the viewers would know that I love windsurfing. I love being on the water. It's bliss for me, and it's my break free of everything that I do through the day. I sort of mentioned that too, as well as I think it's a reminder, especially when I was going through those experiences. One of the things that I used to like to do is to bring myself away from those sort of environments of the everyday separation and get out in the water and whatever it is I was to do, and it does clear my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a little something about me. But what can you share something with the audience that?
I think it was yoga that got me through that. I did a lot of yoga. I was doing yoga like twice a day and sometimes every day. I still do it probably twice a week. And meditation is just is integrated into who I am and what I do. It's just yoga, meditation. I used to love sailing. To me, being out on the water is still sanctuary. It's just
Yeah,
not a motorboat. I need to feel the rhythm of the water and hear the
I
wind. And
agree.
so I don't do that as often as I like. So even just to get out to the beach and smell the salt and feel the spray and that it sort of rinses away any sort of residue of the day. It's a great cleanse emotionally for me and spiritually.
I've thought about getting into yoga, but I've just never hit that button.
Start gentle because there are
Yeah.
some really tough yoga classes out there. Um, and it's a great stretch, and it is
Yeah, I want
meditation and
to.
movement. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one day I will do it. Maybe we need to talk after, and
yeah.
you can push me into it. uh, um, that's great. So, but actually, before we do move on, how's your week been? How's the last few months been? In the world of separation, family law, and divorce.
I got to say, going through the winter here, it like things go quiet. People don't do a lot, not a lot happening. So I did a lot more commercial mediation but in terms of family, it's just some inquiries. And then in the last month, it's been like, oh, Christmas holidays are coming up. I got 6 weeks with the kids. I need to go to mediation. And it's like, hang on, man, let's talk about what it is that you want. And I get a lot of blind emails, or I get former clients calling me and saying he or she's being unreasonable. And I'm like, okay, let's talk them down from the precipice, because it's often the expectation and the fear. I won't have my kids on Christmas morning.
Mm.
And yeah, I have an empathy with that, because I know I've heard that so many times over the last decades. How am I going
Mm.
to have time with my kids? So a lot of that's bubbling up right now. And then what do? We got 6 weeks holiday. How are we going to? And I can only get 2 weeks off, and we got the same time off with the co-parent. And how do we manage that? And the grandparents don't live. There's this panic, and it's like, well, let's pull it back. What are we looking
Mm.
at? How do we want to do? What do the kids want to do? Have you talked to the kids about this? Questions that I just ask questions, but it is happening a lot right now. And talking to family lawyers, we're all going through in this area the same practice. People are wanting to get things done before Christmas. They want to
Yeah.
have some resolution so they know that there's going to be something happening towards the end of the year.
And you've just reminded me, not that I'm a divorce coach or an expert at all or a family lawyer, but I understand the environment is that you talked about urgency. And I think the most important thing, especially when it comes to, lawyers, is not to put yourself in if at all possible, not to put yourself in an urgent environment or an urgent position. Because if you're urgent and you demand a lawyer, usually they're going to command higher fees. So
Yeah.
it's important to, I guess, stick to your yoga or your windsurfing, so you stay grounded and you're able to separate and then come back and like you just said, stay organized. Yeah. So that leads into it. Look, I'm going to dive straight in. So
Yeah.
the question is, what is divorce coaching and how does it help that? Can you start, I guess, from the basics by explaining what divorce coaching actually is And can you tell our viewers how it differs from working with a lawyer or a counsellor,
Yeah.
and why someone going through separation might need a divorce coach?
And not being a lawyer, and I'm not a counselor. So, but they're part of my team. So think of it as a collaborative approach. So my role as a divorce coach is to help a client find the emotional support they need, the motivational support, spiritual support, physical supports that they might need. So what are the goals? Improve communications, manage this emotional turmoil um, that's just slammed them. I mean, I haven't met anybody that, even the person that initiates a separation, is going through an immense amount of grief and loss and sensing what's going on and helping them navigate that. So I'm not here to give legal advice. That's what lawyers are there for. And sometimes when I get a client, I say, well, first of all, let's get you a solicitor, find out what your legal rights are and what needs to be done. And then let's pull back and see where we're at. Maybe we'll talk to a counselor. So it's setting goals. It's helping them find what can do. And then co-parenting. How do you want to talk? I mean, like we're talking about Christmas time. One question I asked a client this week was, well, have you talked to your ex? No, I know she's going to be difficult, was the answer. And I was like, well, first of all, what do you have as a parenting plan? What's in your goals? What do you want to accomplish? And is there something that you could ask for without sort of telling? And it was like, oh. And it was like a 15-minute conversation. And I think they went away happy because now they can go ask questions and they already have an agreed method of what to do over the Christmas holidays, rather than, I know she's going to be difficult because in the past she has been, but we have no evidence of that. So rather than, if you imagine you went to your solicitor and said, she's going to be difficult, I need you to send her a letter to say, don't be difficult. Well, you've just spent $600 to get a letter to somebody that's going to then respond in kind. And now we've escalated something that could have just started off, hey, I know we do this, but my parents are visiting. Could we have Christmas morning? And then I'm happy to hand over at lunchtime. Could we try that? I know it's not it's a conversation that, you're going to get a yes or a no, or can we compromise? And what are we looking at? Well, if you have a solicitor involved. So, and a solicitor may say, well, have you talked to them? But now you just spent a couple $100. But and then if you think a collaborative approach, we get clarity, we get direction. I'll talk people from that emotional fear that really drives everything and bring down to, what's your focus? What do you want as an outcome? And how do you want to get there? And what's it going to look like? So we think of the future, because we already know what the past has been, but we can't expect performances of our futures, our future to look like what the past is. If we change, so will our future.
Yeah, I agree. Are there some common misconceptions people might have about a divorce coach?
Yeah, that I'm there to tell you what to do. I'm not. My advice is generic and it's tailored to what your needs are, because I'll extract what you need from you as an individual, because you know this, but there's so much cloudiness. There's so many other things, and we think we need an instant fix. And if you like, in a few sessions, we start to get a better plan. We start to understand where we need to go, how to do that. Now I'm ready to talk to my solicitor. Now I'm ready to go and talk about what I can get in a real estate agent, because I need to get a valuation on the property to start talking about property settlement. Being a mediator as an FDRP, I can also help them prepare for the mediation process, because I'm not going to be the mediator because they're a client.
Yeah.
So it's mediation being mandatory. It's like, so I mean, how many people know what mediation is? It's like, I've heard about it. My lawyer tells me I've got to go to it. How does this work? And so I can walk through exactly what mediation is, what the mediator's role is. Yes, you can have legally assisted. Yes, you can have someone in the room if you want it. And, what's the goal you want to get, how to get an outcome from it. There's a parenting plan, for instance, or if you're doing property, what's the property going to look like? Because it's not going to be 50-50, right? And the courts, you want to you're not going to avoid the court, but you want to make sure that you're not ending up in long-term litigation. You want to go to court with the plan. The court signs off on it and says, okay, kids are good, you're good, see you later.
Yeah. What did you mean by 50? Not did you say not going to be
It's
50-50?
not going to be 50-50 unless there's no kids involved, because it's going to be, well, how old are the kids? If the kids are infants, then the primary caregiver is going to have more time with the kid, may not have, or the children not have more time to be able to have a full-time job. There may be
Yeah,
some restrictions. So there's going to be some fluctuation as to where that might be. It might be 60-40, it might be a 70-30, depending on the
yeah,
asset base, depending on what is equitable and fair. It's not going to be, and fairness isn't necessarily what we think 50-50. It's
no,
what's really equitable.
yeah, and
And
that's what I think people don't understand. Sorry, Dave.
so, and then I want to say the last thing is it's always about the children. Nowhere in the act does it talk about us as parents. We have a responsibility to make sure our kids are safe, sound, healthy, that they're in a good environment, and the act ensures that. So I, as a mediator, have to make sure that that's happening when I'm talking with parents. I have to remind them that's going on. As a coach, I do that, saying
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
about the kids. What are we doing? How are they being? Are they make are they getting nutritional help? How are they handling school? What can you do as a parent to help them with that process? They're going to be confused. How do you want to have that conversation? What would you like it to look like? Do you want to have this with the other parent present? Do you want to, so the two of you are having a conversation to reassure your child or children that they're not being left behind, that they are a primary consideration.
yeah, yeah. I agree. You kind of touched on it, but why do you think so many people struggle through divorce without this kind of support, and what risks does that pose? We talked about urgency.
Yeah.
If you're going to put yourself in an urgent situation, it could potentially cost you more in law fees.
Yep.
You sort of touched on other subjects, but can you talk more to that? What people struggle with through divorce without this kind of support through divorce coaching?
I mean, the people think, where am I going to live? So they rush off and go rent a place. Then they, which may be beyond their financial means because we know that there's a shortage in rentals. Then they start looking at the bank accounts and go, oh, I better take something out of there. And then they start, and it's like, let's have a conversation about what are we going to be doing. Okay, the kids need to come stay with me, so I need to go get a 4-bedroom house. And it's like, so that's, there's temporary means, there's it, people panic to the future and make plans rashly without pause,
Yeah,
and then say, okay, is that going to happen? Do you have any expectations of that happening? If it's a DV situation, that's something totally different,
I agree.
right? That's about a safety issue, and that is, all stops happening, and that is urgent. But if it's like the kids are safe, the marriage is, or the relationship is now at its end, how do we do this with dignity, kindness, and respect?
Yeah.
Because
And I think just to
yeah,
touch on, sorry, I was just going to say to touch on domestic violence before we move on, it's
yeah,
really important that
yeah,
people do sort of seek out support, whether that be through the calling triple O
yeah,
or, any of those sort of support services and get immediate support. In domestic violence situations.
absolutely. It's safety and understanding what your safety is and how important it is to do that. And it's okay to ask for help. It's not, you're not wrong. And I think a lot of cases where there is domestic violence, someone feels guilty if they're going to be betraying on their spouse or
Yeah,
partner. And it's like, no, your physical well-being is far more important. We know of too many horrendous cases where people didn't ask for help in time.
yeah, yeah. And you also talked about, getting rentals. It's important to understand that living also under the same roof while divorced and having the same bank account, there are implications to those
Yeah,
when getting a divorce. So it's really important. I think this is where divorce coaches, I mean, personally, I think are great because you can sort of talk about all those different scenarios and make you aware of that they can then, when they do seek a lawyer, they can get that professional advice and ask the right questions
yeah.
and get more immediate support. So, yeah,
Because if you imagine going into a lawyer, and I mean, this is a natural thing, you have all the questions, but the questions are based from fear of, I'm going to have something taken away, I'm going to spend way too much money. So rather than, we're actually going to keep joint bank accounts, we're still living under the same roof, but we're separate, we have separate bedrooms. Does that matter? Yes, that is a separation. You can have that legally noted, and you can, so there's all of that can happen. So if there's no domestic violence and there's no I'm going to say argy bargy between you as a couple, it is possible to do that. It is also possible. I've seen house shares where the kids
Mm.
stay in the house and the parents have a separate bedroom. Not always the best, but it's a good temporary measure until such time as things settle down and the property settlement is organized.
Yeah. And a tip, I've said this before, is that if there usually is one party that's not usually, there are circumstances, and it could be a male or female. There's no, it's not gender biased in any way or gender specific, but there is usually one couple, one that isn't in a strong position financially because they haven't worked. And I think people, if they own their house with their partner, they've got to understand that there are services out there which will loan. They'll offset the house, and you'll get what you call is a credit, a loan credit,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't even have to have work. A line of credit, sorry, you
Yep.
don't even have to be able to work. You can actually apply, and they hold that against the house. And when you sell the house, they take a portion of those fees to cover, and they can actually pay the lawyer fees
Yep.
direct off the house. So there are ways where people can, move out, and that's where you can explore those different scenarios and ideas.
Yeah. And there's a lot of help available. The people just, it's when it hits or when you make the decision to separate, it's like, how do I do all this? Whatever. And it's, if you like, it's just to slow down and ask the questions. That's my role, just to help it. And it reduces the conflict because the conflict starts to, we get emotionally charged. And if we can, and, one of the sayings we have in divorce coaching is, conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional, right? We can choose how we want to engage. And if we engage with kindness, even if the other side is agitated to a state where they are in high conflict, it does slow them down because if you're not responding, they can't escalate. And so they'll calm down too. It may take some time. It may even take a few days, but it will happen. That you don't need to always be butting heads to get to an outcome.
Mm. And would you say that's where divorce coaching leads you? It leads you to sort of that less stress, less conflict, and
It
in essence, reduce lawyer fees.
absolutely we the whole point of divorce coaching is to do alternative dispute resolution, is to help the client get to the point of being able to negotiate. I'll give you an example. I had a client last year who couldn't imagine being in the presence of her ex, quivered at his name, got a text from him, would just go into shock. And over a course of 6 months, we had several coaching sessions. She got to the mediation, was able to sit across the table from, look in the eye and say, all I want is what's fair. But look him in the eye. 6 months previously, she couldn't even have done that. But it was working with, she had a counselor she was talking to. She had myself, and then just prior to the mediation, helped with a property lawyer to help her focus on what the property needs were. And she and I drafted what would be the parenting order that would then give to the lawyer. So it was, and they were able to do that in mediation. He was completely flummoxed because he'd been used to this docile, pliable partner that he could somewhat bully, and found that he was up against someone who was very resilient and but not unkind, and just said,
Yeah.
no, I just need to be fair. I want you to be able to hold, I want you to keep the home. I just want equity so I can start again. And it was
You
a,
touched on
sorry.
you touched on dispute resolution. There's
Yep.
also collaborative law,
Yep.
which is more, focusing on resolving family law disputes, with minimal conflict and without going to court. You want to have lawyers represent you with that sort of mindset because in the end, who wants conflicts and disputes to escalate?
And if you go before the registrar of family court, the registrar is looking, have you made a genuine attempt here? And there's a mediator where you ask is a genuine attempt. So the collaborative approach, and I'll say, I'll put a team around a client and say, let's get you a therapist. Let's make sure you've got a solicitor as we get closer towards the conclusion. Um, you know, let's coach what the future is going to be like. Let's have a
Yeah.
team that can help you with. You need a real estate agent because now you're getting to the settlement. The bank's going to be able to transfer money. You'll be able to make a deposit to either acquire, and but what do you need is temporary residence. So it's having people together to sort of, and here's the beauty about divorce coaching. This can take 3 years to go from I'm separating to getting to the final court order where everything's done and you've spent lots of money in litigation. Or you go through divorce coaching in 6 to 9 months, you've got to the other side and now you're planning the future. The kids are healthy because they're seeing both parents not engaging in a war. The parents are feeling a little more grounded because they realize that they got the best they could. They ended up with a win-win, not a win-lose. They didn't beat the other side down. And again, I'm going to repeat, the kids are happy,
Mm.
right? And when that happens, that reduces a lot of the tension between the parents because if they see the kids are psychologically doing well, then you know they can relax and get on with their lives, and that newfound life that they're going to have as a single person. What does that look like? I mean, one of the first questions I get usually, when can I start dating? And my reaction is, so what would that look like? What would happen? Because people think, well, I've been separated now for 2 years. I'm ready to start dating. And it's like, well, let's talk about that. So it's even post separation. What are we looking at? How are we going to handle life? Because the other thing I remind clients is that getting a divorce, talking about your kids now, and say they're 10 years old. We've got another, you've got teen years to go through. They'll become parents, and you're going to be co-grandparents together. Keep in mind that the relationship that you have stays with your children and stays with the other parent. And it's a long-term deal. It's not something that stops just because we're divorced. There's a future, but you can mark your own future.
Mm. I liked how you touched on, you know, you're ready for real estate to buy a property potentially. So maybe you need a real estate. And that made me think that's the key. It's getting out of thinking about the past
Yeah.
and obviously dealing with the present, but not thinking about the things that you can't control. Because if you end up going to court, it's basically going to become out of your hands because it's up to the lawyers to work with you to get, I understand you need to be a part of that process. But once you go to the court, it's up to the judge's decision to make their decision so that you can't change that. And I think the reason I liked that approach of what you mentioned about having a real estate and then, potentially getting into dating, it makes you think about the future and it takes your thinking off the stress of where you have been.
Mhm.
And I think that's the key is getting a step of, going to the gym as well now, going to getting a real estate agent, getting a new job and putting those goals in place. Would you say that's correct in saying?
I think you've nailed it, Matt. That's really getting the client to the point where life isn't over. Life is now beginning, and it's just going to be different. But that difference gives you a chance to really expand. Like if you wanted to go back to school, now's an opportunity to look. What does that look like? If you want to try a new career, what would that new career look like? If you wanted, if work takes you interstate, what does that look like? It's I'll tell clients this is an opportunity to take those dreams that you put on hold because you thought you had to, and understand you
Yeah.
no longer have to live by rules that constrained you. That was probably the friction in your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I'd like to say life's not different, life's better. And I don't say that I
Yeah.
guess it's where when you come
Yep.
from the separation, that part is just not nice. But once you move forward, what we had was better in the past, but it doesn't exist anymore, but it becomes even better. And I think the reason it becomes better is because we're a lot more mature. And when you are separated and you're single, you can just chase those things that you've always wanted to chase and you don't have anyone to answer to
Yeah.
apart from looking after your kids if that's the situation and you're in. And it becomes better, not just different, better.
I'd say with my ex, we were friends before we got married, and my therapist said, "Don't you still want to be friends?" And I went, "Nah, I don't want to be friends with." And then I thought about it, and I said, "Well, she's still a really good person. She's a great mom. So
Yeah,
why wouldn't I want to keep that going?"
yeah,
And I'm not going to say it was perfect, and we sang "Kumbaya" and it was rainbows and unicorns. There were moments in which we just didn't like each other, but now we're a quarter century past that,
yeah,
and we live in different countries. But we have a grandson together, and we both. and our kids are now full adults, but it's like, there's a respect, and we wish each other happy birthday, and she has milestones she celebrates. I really like her new partner. I think and her partner is great. They've been together actually a long time now. um you know it's we had a past together but not a future, and our future has really been where we had expectations on each other, which held ourselves back because we thought that's what our partner wanted, and really we weren't being true to ourselves. And separating gave us an opportunity to really, so she could be who she really wanted to be. And I was able to support that as we were going through the divorce, because I saw that she was actually happier without me. As sad as that made me, she was happier and better off without me. And
And I think,
that realization meant that, oh, I can be the same.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a good mindset. And I think for the viewers that aren't in that position, everyone's different as
Yeah.
well, and we're not always lucky to be able to move forward in a positive way because it might have been a domestic violence.
Yeah.
Everyone's scenario is different, and that's what I love about the whole divorce coaching sort of concept, is that it's about understanding everyone's individual and devising a plan through that, like we just mentioned, that future strategy that gets you off that negative thinking and gets you thinking about yourself. Because if you don't, I've always said to my daughter, if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else, and that sort of positions you up for a stronger future. So, can you talk about any best and worst case scenarios that, obviously, without
Yeah.
naming names or anything like that, but can you talk more to that?
Best case, I mean, I'm thinking of one case which I was facilitating a client, I was helping a client through, and they had no children, and it really was amicable separation, and just came to see me, wanted to check in and go through some things. And the best case was, it really was down to some minor things on property, because they had a property together. It was probably about $500,000 net, and that was going to be a 50-50. They wanted to get an agreement without court. And where the friction was over some porcelain that they'd received as a wedding present, and both wanted it. And it was empowering her to negotiate what she really wanted out of that. And it came down to only one piece, but it was being able to put a voice to it. And that was like the best case scenario. And that impasse ended everything, and that's amicable. Worst case is when I'm having to make sure the client is it's just domestic violence is the worst case that I can have. And my clients are, most I've only had 3 male clients, so my clients have been predominantly women. But I had one client that it was horrendous domestic violence. It had been ongoing for years, and it was coaching through that scenario. That initially had been referred to me to talk about mediation, and I went, "You're not ready for mediation, and I really think we just need to have a conversation." And we talked frustratingly for 2 hours, and then I said, "Look, I actually do coaching in this area, but I need you to be in a halfway house. I need you to get somewhere safe. Is there someone you can stay with? I need you to get. I have a counselor that I want you to talk to." And then once we've gotten that, let's talk about what I can do as a coach.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah,
and she moved out that day with literally the clothes on her back.
yeah. And it's a good point as well. You don't. I like how you mentioned you don't necessarily. She's not ready, or that person,
Yeah,
not she, who is not ready for divorce coaching, because I think if you're not in the right headspace to think about the future, and you're still getting over and need to grieve, because let's face it, you're allowed to grieve,
yep,
and grieving is different for everyone. Someone might say they'll grieve in a day and they've now got their plan and they're ready to go ahead. Others might take years to get through that process, and you would hope that it's not going to be years. But it's good that you point out to understand that it's okay to not be ready for a divorce coach, and understand that, like you mentioned, there's a psychologist or a counselor to get you thinking more positive, and understand that you need to be in a safe place, and then get them to sort of get that plan in place. And then
mhm,
once they're ready, they then sort of step back into the divorce coaching where they focus on themselves and are able to start loving themselves more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my clients come before anything that I need. It's like I'd rather sit and spend the time to make sure that the client understands what are their options and what's in their best needs, so that they're not in a power imbalance. Because it's often, particularly in domestic violence, they're in a power imbalance. They haven't got the cognitive choices before them because they don't know. So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do this in any of the practices I do. Is that my clients always come first, and their needs are paramount. And if they're not ready, I'll tell them they're not ready. Let's
Yeah.
slow this down.
Okay, before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you one question. So, what sort of one piece of advice you'd give listeners who are considering separation or currently going through a divorce,
Get
if there
help.
can be one?
Yeah. Find
Probably
someone
not.
you talk to. That's not a family member. That's not your best friend. That's not your mates down at the pub, but someone who's independent that can give you independent advice. There are a number of divorce coaches. Take advantage of the free call, the complimentary call, just to check in and see what's available. Because I think going through the grief is so overwhelming, the emotions are so overwhelming. Best advice I can give is, before jumping in and saying, this is what I'm going to do, check with someone that's independent that can say, here are some options that you might want to consider.
So, what's the process? So, if I wanted to reach out to a divorce coach,
Yeah.
and what am I going to expect? So, let's run through the scenario. I'm thinking I want a divorce coach. I reach out to a divorce coach.
Yeah.
What am I going to expect with regards to, are they fixed fees? Are they hourly fees? How does that process? Can you talk more to that?
I do a fee for 6 sessions. I can do longer. We can do a one session. So the way I do it is I give clients a half hour complimentary. It's usually longer, but I just say it's going to be a 30-minute complimentary call, just to see if we're a fit. Maybe there's another
Yeah.
coach that might be better.
Yeah.
We have the Divorce Coach Institute of Australia, which is a place to go find other coaches. We're not the only coach institute. There are others, but that's the one that I'm a member of. And it's some charge by the hour, but I think most of us do packages where you can buy a package of 3 or 6, so that it's manageable in terms of finance, and it's gives you an opportunity, so that you're going to be meeting with your coach once a week. And the way I do it is that, I know we have a session scheduled for an hour on this day, but if something comes up, by all means, give me a call. That's part of the package. We need to spend 10 minutes on the phone just to sort of say, it's okay, let's calm this down, or let's have a chat about what's come up. I will do that, because it's again serving the client to get through the process. And the other coaches that I'm in the institute with, they also do the same thing. They will talk to the clients between sessions to make sure the clients or check in with the client and say, well, how did that go? How did the conversation before we meet on Thursday? How did it go? Yeah.
I really like your approach there, Thad, and it just goes to show you're not out for a sale and you're not money hungry, because you just mentioned the divorce coach and you're genuine in that you want to be connecting with people that want to, want your services for you in regards to divorce coaching. And if you're not the right fit, you said that to me already off air, that, there is that you've just mentioned. I'd never heard of the Divorce Coaching Institute. So, look, I think if any listeners are, so your services can be virtual or in person, is that correct? Or is it primarily in person?
It can be virtual. I have clients that, I'm in Kalanga, Dagobin, and I have clients in Strathpine that will refer to me virtually, because they can sit at home in their garden with a mug of tea and be in that comfortable environment. So again, the client's needs are more important. So I find that I'll meet the client where they're at.
Well, without further ado, thank you for your time. And
Yeah.
look, I encourage anyone listening that's made it this far to visit. It's betteroutcomes.au, and we will leave more details in the comments or description of the show. But before we go, Thad, was there anything more you wanted to say?
I think I've said a lot. But thank you for the opportunity, Matt. I really enjoyed our connection and ability to chat. And great work that you do, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Hopefully, we see you again on the show in the near future.
If you have me, I'm happy to come back.
Thanks, Dad. And I
Thanks.
wish you it's coming up to the festive season. I wish you a Merry Christmas in 2025, 26, and even Happy New Year if we don't connect before then.
Yeah, and same to you, man. Happy Christmas and Happy New Year. It's I can't believe it's already on us.
Time flies.
It does.
Until then, bye for everyone.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thank you.